What's up, weebs? Welcome back to Anime Lane, the podcast where we take you down the yellow brick road of anime and have a look at everything it has to offer. As always, I am your host, Notorious, and joining me once again today, once this introduction is done, is Shaun and Melina. This is another EX cut, though EX usually means like extended or extra. However, it's not really an extension of anything this time. I'm just taking out the ghost stories section of our very first podcast episode that we ever aired. This is where we tried to watch ghost stories, but specifically the dubbed version, but none of us really gelled with it that much, so we got varying degrees through it. Shaun got 1 episode in, I got 3 episodes in, and Melina got 6. So yeah, we thought we would just put this out on its own just so you can kind of hear this little individual piece by itself, and you can judge, if you want to watch it yourself. Though I don't necessarily recommend the dub. Of course, this being season 1, our very first episode, the pilot, the audio quality is a little different, but mainly we didn't do our introduction of the show. So, Ghost Stories is a anime directed by Noriyuki Abe with animation production by Studio Piro. It is written, I mispronounced Studio Piero, sorry. Music by Kaoru Wada, written by Hiroshi Hashimoto, and it is based on a series of novels by Toru Tsunemitsu, which can be literally translated as School Ghost Stories or Ghosts at School. It's in Japanese, it's originally Gaku no Kaiden. So yeah, that's kind of the introduction over. I guess I'll pass you over to us in the past. In the last episode, I mentioned that Ghost Stories failed in Japan, which, as it turns out, is not true.
Oh.
So
that's something I'd always heard as well.
Yeah, so that's like I mentioned, the legend, the story that surrounds the series.
The ghost story.
The ghost story. The urban legend that surrounds it. But as I found out from someone who sent me in a correction, one of my friends, yeah, it's not true. It was very popular in Japan. It had a really good audience share, and it was basically a miscommunication between the licensors and the Japanese studios. I'll link a video into the description of the podcast that goes over it in detail from Mercury Falcon, who did a lot of really great research into it and kind of uncovered the real story behind it. But to summarize, in Japan, it had a 14% audience share in the 2000s, which in the middle of an anime boom was great, because even back when Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z were airing, they only had about 8%. So that's like, 6% higher than Dragon Ball, of all things.
That's pretty shocking.
And this is like 3 or 4 years after Evangelion was on the air.
Wow.
So it was quite popular for the time, and that makes sense because in Japan it's based on a series of children's books that were heavily popular, which I didn't know. I normally, a lot of this stuff comes from manga. I, for some reason, always assumed Ghost Stories was actually an original series, but yeah, as it turns out, based on children's books. But when it was airing on TV, it was actually made as a filler show, because when this was coming out, One Piece was airing on Wednesday nights, and there was a show called GTO airing on Sundays, and that's, I think, the prime time spot is Sunday night around 7:30 or something like that. And they wanted to move One Piece from Wednesday to Sunday, but they didn't want to do it right away when GTO finished, because they noticed that moving... so they originally did that with Rurouni Kenshin when that was originally animated by Studio Gallop and then moved to Studio Dean. They also moved its time slot, and they noticed a massive drop-off in viewership. So to avoid that with One Piece, what they decided to do was, rather than when GTO finished instantly moving One Piece, they wanted to wait to the beginning of the new anime spring season, because anime works in a sort of 13-week cycle of seasonal airings.
Very scheduled.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's why you kind of notice a recurring theme of episode count being 12, 13 if it's a single core series, or 24 to 26 if it's a dual core, and then 52. So you can kind of work out episode counts based on that. So moving One Piece, they wanted to avoid that viewership drop off, because One Piece was a titanic title, and still is, and this is the 2000s when, it was just getting itself started.
Yeah.
So they made a filler show to fill in those weeks. So they had 20 weeks to fill, so they made Ghost Stories, which is why it's only 20 episodes and doesn't fit into the 24 episode structure, which is why I kind of fell into the whole it got cancelled, no one cared, because it didn't fit any perception, the standard that you have for these sort of things.
It's easy to make that assumption.
Yeah, but it was very popular. Now, one episode did get pulled from air and kind of caused a bit of a controversy, because there was an episode, I think episode 3, originally was supposed to be about an urban legend of a woman who has slits on her mouth.
The slit woman thing. I've heard the story
the
before.
Joker mouse.
Sort of, yeah, but basically it caused a controversy around it looking like a cleft palate, and so parents of children with cleft palates weren't happy, and Fuji TV pulled it from the air. So they aired a recap, blah blah blah. But yeah, so Ghost Stories is massively popular in Japan, and the reason it got dubbed the way it did is because someone lied somewhere along the line, basically.
Damn.
They pulled in a writer who doesn't really like anime but is known for doing these sort of dubs. So yeah, that's Ghost Stories.
I will say there should be an asterisk on this topic, because we say we've not watched the full thing.
No, okay,
None of us have watched the full thing.
Basically, I think there'll be spoilers for about 6 episodes, because Melina's actually the one who's watched the most. I've then watched 3 episodes, and Shaun only watched the 1.
I was going to watch more, but I had good reasons not to.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't regret it.
No, I don't blame you for only watching the 1. I almost tapped out at the first episode as well. So I think before we get in depth into the conversation, I think I should give context for the series, because it's such a peculiar...
It is
set of
something.
So
there is such an interesting story there. You have to if you're talking about it.
So this came out in Japan in 2000, funnily enough, and it lasted for 19 episodes on air with 1 extra episode on the home video release. But basically, what happened was it did so badly in Japan that when it came over here, I want to say that this is the hearsay story. Like, this is like, even, I mean, the VAs, the English VAs, even perpetuate this story, but I don't know the caliber of truth to this. So
it's hearsay, but like, we've got nothing better to construct it on.
Like this, this is the legend that surrounds it, basically.
The most official story we have. So
basically, it did so badly in Japan that when, I think it was ADV Films were bringing it over, they basically were told, don't bother translating the Japanese scripts for the English dub, just do whatever you want to make it sell. So they basically did a kind of ad-libbed dub where like whoever showed up first to the studio got to kind of pick the tone and like, start things off, essentially. And that led to what a lot of people cite as being very funny, but I don't think those people have watched it since it originally came out, and I want to say about 2005.
It is a product of its time.
It is very much a product of time, yeah.
Very
so
much.
I'm trying to check here when the dub came out. I think roughly, I want to say around 2005.
That's what it felt like to me when I was watching it, even just the first episode.
So they had ADV, yep, that's correct. I was writing who I thought dubbed it. Announced in October 2004 they had it, and then they released it on 5 DVDs, 5 DVD volumes between 2005 and 2006. So it's very much a product of that era, because there's a lot of there's a recurring
Slurs?
Yes, ones that have definitely become slurs now.
At some point I was watching it, like, okay, next episode, what slur is gonna just thrown out?
Because the first episode starts with a character who recurs. Well, I mean, she's part of the main cast. She's in pretty much every episode. Who is like a born again Christian who hates gay people.
Yeah.
And that certainly hasn't aged well in the slightest.
No.
I mean, other than that, the first episode is like nothing happened. Well, things happened, but like there's nothing memorable about it.
Yeah, like the born again Christian part is probably the most out there it goes.
And I think it's this case of like, outrageous humor was what, South Park was big at the time and all that sort of thing. So I think that's what, they were trying to tap into that vein.
It's weird though, because funnily enough, I've been watching, this is not anime, I know, but like, I've been watching a lot of like South Park recently, just as background noise, and it's South Park, and you shouldn't come to expect it. It somehow it aged way better.
This is the thing,
given its whole thing, though. It's weird.
For all that South Park is crude and crass humor, it's well written.
It's intelligent.
Yes, there
absolutely
is
an intelligence there, which is weird to say for a show that has Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh.
But
but it couldn't succeed and continue for 20 odd seasons if it wasn't. Sorry, I cut you off there, Melina.
I just wanted to say, like, they make it with the intent. Like, you can tell on everything from the production and the writing to, the eventual jokes. It's meant to be very crass.
Yeah.
And when, you go in thinking that's what it's going to be, it doesn't catch you off guard as much as these very, young children being like, look at this lesbian here. Oh, that's my mom. She used to be a lesbian.
Yeah, like
okay.
The biggest yikes moment I heard from the first episode is just like when they open like the book with like the principal, I think, and it's supposed to be her mum or grandma. Because they mentioned at the beginning of the episode that like the grandma looks a lot like her mum. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
In the dubbed version, it's the mom. In the non-dub version, it's the grandma.
Oh, so they just totally changed it.
Because the thing is, like, the husband says, I met your mother at the schoolhouse, which I first of all thought was a very weird term. I don't know if it's a British language. Like, the term, a schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse, that's very much just a Japanese thing in general.
Like we wouldn't call it a schoolhouse.
No. Yeah, and so the dad says something, I think, along the lines of, I met your mother at the schoolhouse. But then they went away, and so they say it's your grandmother.
Right, okay.
That was the principal.
Uh-huh.
I mean, at this point I might be wrong, because it's just a clusterfuck in my head.
I don't think the series was particularly well written originally. And I can see that even, watching the dub, like the DNA of the show is still the same. And it's like, it's cookie cutter ghost show that doesn't have much going for it, I don't think.
If it was in its original form, I can imagine myself putting it on as like a very much a background noise sort of thing.
I don't even think I would.
I'd
watch a couple of episodes and I think I'd have the same reaction. I always give something like 3 episodes. If it doesn't catch me, that's it. Or well, depending on the length of the series. But like, I think that this would have been a thing. I watched like 3 episodes and I'd be like, nah, I'm done. Because it to me it doesn't have much to really. It's so much just a product of its time. It is so much that era of animation and character designs, and I hate to admit that doesn't generally appeal to me that much. I'm very much kind of 90s before 10s after. That era of the 2000s it's a lot of it doesn't really appeal to me characteristically. A lot more,
surprisingly enough, from what I've seen and from the general vibe I get, it feels a lot rougher.
Yeah, a lot of stuff from that era is, this is 2000s, and then like 2000 through 2005 is a very rough era for anime because it was that transition to digital. So you have a lot of stuff that was animated at and very just like a sort of Wild West time of transitioning to the new technology that a lot of it's aged like milk.
Yeah.
So, for me, the show itself hasn't aged particularly well, but then the dub is... oh my god. Because I can't remember anything about the second episode. I can only remember the first and the third. And
Did you guys see the piano? The haunted... Was it? I don't know if it's like in the first 3 or 4 to 6, because I watched them on separate days.
I didn't see any
was
piano.
Was it for Elise? Like, it would slow down, and once you heard it 7 times, it would kill you. But
that's definitely beyond what I've seen, because the second episode is the haunted toilet.
Oh, yeah. But I laughed my ass off at the piano episode, because you don't see the ghost thing. So it's just... Imagine a grand piano following a little girl around.
Oh my god!
And it's hilarious because they made no effort to make it look scary, so it's legit a piano just kind of rolling after
So
this poor
it's
girl.
not even like a Mario 64 sort of piano with teeth chomping at
No,
you thing. It's
no.
literally just a piano.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to watch more episodes now. So I want to see that.
It's great because, you know, she can hear it because it's the main girl. I don't remember her name. Because another point is all the main characters' names were very Japanese and they made an effort to pronounce it. But whenever they had like side characters that didn't matter, it was like, hey, Johnny!
Yeah.
Hello, Jacob.
That's the thing, I don't remember any of the characters' names
No.
at all. I just know that there was a lot of jokes about the main
Yeah.
girl being in like a training bra, and I'm like, oh
Jesus
no.
Christ.
It gets worse. Like almost every episode has a moment where she flashes the guy and he has to comment on the style of panty she's wearing.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
from like the
Like-
first or second episode.
Yeah,
It
definitely the
happens-
first.
I remember 3 times it happening over 6 episodes. It could be that it's more. She's also constantly telling her, "You're fat. You're so heavy. You're fat."
Oh my god.
And yeah, the whole training bra situation. Like at some point they make a wish, and she's like, "I wish to get
Yeah,
bigger boobs."
And he wishes to touch them. That's the third
Jesus
episode.
Christ.
Because the third episode is probably like the part where I knew I'm done because
Yeah,
it
it's a
has
theater one.
yeah, it has the Phantom of the Ghost Opera, as they call it, even
Not
though
written
they
by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
which they directly reference Andrew Lloyd Webber. But basically the whole premise is like there's a set of stairs that if you sit on like the fourth one,
Mhm.
you become cursed or you
Like,
fulfill a
if
wish.
if you make a wish or just, you know, say, "I wish I could do this,"
Uh-huh.
like it will come true. But
Yeah.
it's only the 4th step.
Uh-huh. So he like one of the main cast who's like the nerd, I
Mhm.
want to say, is like their
Make
archetype.
sure you mention he's Jewish.
Oh yeah, he's
They-
Jewish.
Yes, he
They
is.
made him Jewish in the dub. Yeah.
I remember that.
The amount of oy veys in this show. They kept mentioning it. I'm like, I don't think this is in, you know, the original.
It wouldn't have been. I mean, I don't think the girl who's like a born again Christian or him being
Mhm.
Jewish, that would not have been in the original, just
No.
because they don't really dabble in that
No,
sort of.
Okay, I did want to like the main thing that made me want to see the original was that born again Christian girl, because I was like, they are really holding on to this character to the point where
Yeah.
it almost feels like that's the original intent.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. Like, I just think it's very much like those feel like products of an American,
Oh, yeah.
production.
Mhm.
Japan doesn't really touch on that sort of religion, and even if,
Unless it's Final Fantasy.
well, there is Final Fantasy, but that's like a separate
I know that's
thing
like
in and of itself.
that's the whole other like platform. Hold on,
It's another medium.
medium. That's the word I was thinking of.
Even though there has been anime attempts with Final Fantasy that's
I just can't imagine that working. But sorry,
Yeah,
derailing.
derailing. Even if they do kind of hint at religion, it's in a very subtextual
Mhm.
or symbolic manner. They'll never
Do
beat
that.
you over the head with a character being of a certain
You're gonna
religion.
go straight to hell if you're not gonna
'Cause-
choose the Lord's way.
Not to dump on like media from our hemisphere or anything, but a lot of our writing when it comes to religion and more sensitive topics is very surface level and on the nose, whereas I think if anime tries to tackle it, it's like I suppose it's also a form of the medium where like you can be a lot more subtextual, you can be a lot more subtle with it. You kind of just have to trust in your audience, which is something Hollywood is not great at.
No, because it was one of the things I also checked. Because when I watched the non-dubbed version, I was like, because they have a line where they find a picture of the grandma/mother, whatever, and the girl says, "Oh, I recognize her," and she says, "I recognize this lesbian from gay conversion therapy."
Which comes out the fuck
And
out of nowhere.
I was like, no way.
Yeah.
No way. So in the non-dubbed version, she met her at a hospital.
Yeah, I was gonna
And I
say
was
like
Ah.
there's no way that would be in the original. Like I said, they've they had a lot of creative liberty in how they dubbed
Yeah.
this, especially because, you know, in the third episode is where they bring out the R word in reference to the little brother.
And that, from the clips I've seen, because
It's a
I wanna
recurrent
state,
thing.
I have
Oh,
seen
yeah.
clips of the show, which I feel like most people that know about the show have seen
Yeah.
the vast majority of stuff in those like YouTube clips that show the most outrageous stuff.
Yeah.
That word gets used a lot.
Oh yeah, it's like
a lot.
a recurring thing for not just her brother, but I think, you know, they throw it
Just
out there a lot.
generally, yeah.
Because at that point in time, I think it was generally more not accepted, but, you know,
It wasn't as much of a taboo slur
Yeah.
as it is now.
I don't think that happened until the sort of early 2010s. That you
'cause
know.
we grew as a society.
Exactly. I have seen clips from later on. There's an episode where, like, something to do with the not the radio club, but like there's definitely something to do with like a sound room or something, and like there's
That's
this
the
recurring
music
joke about a
episode.
teacher being like a slut and stuff like that. And
I have
it's-
seen clips of that.
I
I think we watched that clip all
think,
together.
yeah.
Because you know,
Long time ago now.
we watched some clips before we ended up watching the show. I think it was off the back of those clips that we decided, you know, we have to at
It's
least
a fun
try
thing,
this.
yeah.
I think it's maybe something I'd continue if we were watching it together.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's one of those things where, like, it's a bit, because of how the humor's aged, it's a bit uncomfortable to watch with other people, because if I laugh, I'm more laughing out of
Yeah.
Uncomfortableness.
uncomfortableness, or knowing that, you know, oh, that wouldn't fly today. I'm not laughing at the actual joke itself, because when I was watching it on my own, I didn't laugh once at the
It's
series.
just the fact that we don't hear it anymore. Thank
Yeah.
God. And so when you do hear, it, you're like, what?
Oh,
Fuck?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't. You watched it with your boyfriend, so I assume you maybe had a couple of laughs. But watching it on my own, I was like fucking just
It's
deadpan the
like
entire time.
Shock laughter.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
They do this.
Yeah.
The only time I laughed, which was the one time with the "Do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior?" Mainly just by how fast she says that.
Yeah.
Like, that's impressive and funny.
There's a lot of lines throughout that show where, like, they clearly wanted to shoehorn in a joke, so
Yeah.
they just speed through a line.
Yeah.
And that's funny. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's
just
sort of funny,
really
yeah.
And the second one, which I'm kind of ashamed of, but when I say I laughed, it was more of a really uncomfortable. Oh, jeez, was the born again Christians girl, when they're looking at like the principal, she says something along the lines of like, oh yeah, lesbian. I mean woman.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a weird thing to
Yeah.
say. So I sort of just had an uncomfortable laugh at that, like, oh.
I think the only time I really laughed is like whenever the brother's kind of on screen. It's like he'll have one intelligible line of dialogue,
Okay, that made me
I wanted
laugh.
to talk about this.
and then it's
It
just
gets so much worse. like he's not even in the shot, and in the background, he's like,
That happens in the first episode too. I was like, you laugh at that, but then you go, shut the fuck up.
it gets really funny because, like, I understand he's crying on screen, but when he's nowhere on the screen and they don't turn it down either.
Yeah, he's just still like right there.
We came to the conclusion he kind of sounds like Toad.
yes. Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how we've gone this long. We'll talk about the show, but the cat is a dead, like, I was not spitting image, but the voice is
mean,
almost identical to Salem the cat.
It's kind
from
of a splitting
Sabrina.
image, even. Like,
Yeah, I mean, the design wise,
not
I think.
to say all black cats look the same.
No, I mean, I think the designs may be playing off more of I think it's Luna from Sailor Moon.
I did think Luna as well. That was actually going to be my first joke when I talked about it with you like that, but Salem came up instead because that was more like the character of Salem.
Yeah, the characterization and the voice are very like identical to Salem from the Sabrina live action series from the 90s or something.
Yeah, which I've weirdly enough seen.
I've
some
seen
episodes.
it. Yeah, I grew up watching it.
I never grew up with it. I saw it on TV just a while ago. And
okay.
I didn't even really know it existed, to be fair.
The Netflix version's not as good. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Salem doesn't talk for one.
Stupid.
But yeah, I feel like we've exhausted everything we can say about ghost stories.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else, because I I love folklore stories a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're very fascinating, especially when you look like, in context.
I think that this is something that could have had potential because, it focuses on that kind of very particular Japanese folklore.
Yeah.
But the execution, I think, is just what lets it down.
It's like a very Americanized version of an anime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were things where they mentioned, like, oh, we're taking down the mountain and we're going to build a Walmart.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Good.
It's like, oh, yeah, this is going to be a Walmart parking lot. And it's like, what?
And, like, in the same episode, I think, a guy's like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I am Mexican for lunch. I'm like,
yeah, that's right. Because I think that's the cursed toilet
that's
episode.
The toilet episode. You missed out on the toilet
I
episode.
missed out on a lot.
Because they have to go into the toilet to, like, rescue him.
Oh, is it like Train Spotting where, like, he just goes right in?
So it's like, basically, I think the toilets in the main, like, new school building end up going out of commission, so they have to use the one in the old school building. And it's like a very traditional old school Japanese toilet where you kind of, like, squat over it and it's like just in the floor.
Just a hole in the ground.
Yeah, and it asks you red or blue?
Yeah.
And if you answer incorrectly, it'll, like...
But, like, red, it was like, oh, blood will rain from the
Yeah,
skies.
yeah.
Blue, I will strangle you till you turn blue. And then someone just...
Green.
Yellow?
Yeah, yellow.
And I was like, he's gonna get drowned in piss for sure.
Yeah, that's like my immediate reaction to yellow.
Yeah. It's just a strange series.
At that point, just hold it in.
Yeah, so I think it's one of those things where it's become part of the American anime culture to a degree. I don't hear it discussed much anymore, and if it is, it's either people saying, oh, it's very funny, and I'm like, you haven't watched it since it came out since you watched it in, like, 2008.
The people that think it's funny are the same people that are like, you can't be funny anymore nowadays.
Yeah,
it's like,
I think they're very much the corner of the anime community that you kind of look through their likes on Twitter and you're like,
no thanks.
13-year-olds.
Not necessarily 13-year-olds.
The older generation.
Yeah.
Like, this was really funny. You didn't have to think about it.
Okay,
Yeah, I feel like it would be
then.
like the, you'd scroll through it and definitely see like a retweet from like a Nazi account or something on their Twitter type. That's the kind of crowd, that's the kind of vibe I get from the people that would enjoy this sort of thing. Not to say if you do still... No, if you enjoy this, why?
I think
let them know.
Like, there is a part of enjoyment for me, but it's mostly just in hearing the batshit crazy.
I feel like it's almost like it's flipped round into like an ironic sense of enjoyment from it. Now, you're not enjoying it because of
it's good.
the content in it, or
No.
it's good. You're enjoying it because you can't believe that they actually did this.
Yeah.
So that's the end of our EX episode on Ghost Stories, or the time we tried to watch Ghost Stories, the dubbed version. If you want to watch Ghost Stories yourself, you can find it on Crunchyroll with both the subbed and dubbed version. If you want to check out the dub but you don't have Crunchyroll, it is available on Amazon Prime, at least in the UK anyway. But it is also available on DVD and now Blu-ray via Discotheque Media in the US, and I'm sure there will be ways you can get that if you're in the UK, since, I buy a lot of stuff from the US. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm trying to end this very short EX episode. So yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.